Democracy is a form of government where all eligible citizens participate equally through elected representatives in the proposal, development, and creation of laws. It encompasses social, cultural, and economic conditions that enable free and equal practice of political self-determination. So what I propose today here is the practice of pure or absolute democracy does not really exist, cannot even exist. My arguments start with the Lincoln's definition. Democracy is a government of the people, for the people, by the people. Now let's start analysis of the people. It in simple terms means that people are the most important while dealing with the practice of democracy. But unfortunately this is not true in the real world. Politicians take major decisions which affect the life of the masses in the practical world. In the Parliament House, they will argue over everything except those issues which affect them directly. Next, by the people. This needs no explanation. Actually, in democracy, should be initiated by the people. But it is money that talks during the election, not the people. The votes of the suffering masses are just bought by the rich. And finally, for the people. The situation here is that one person, obviously a rich one, is elected into the office, but unfortunately, the real power lies in the hand of those wealthy people who gets nominated to be the ambassadors, generals, district executives, etc. And as soon as they get elected, to work for the people is far away. They don't even bother to think for the people. They just think of themselves. So I think Lincoln's definition itself makes it clear that democracy is a myth. And if you are not happy with Lincoln's definition, in that case, let me jump back to the first definition I made. According to that definition, democracy asks for eligible representative. And the so-called eligible representatives are selected through elections. And here lies the problem. Most people don't know much about sociology, economics, anthropology, then political science, civic engineering, agricultural science, etc. So they are not able enough to hold a well-informed opinion about how the state should be governed. In democracy, the game is all about getting elected, and once a man is elected, he is free to ignore any promises he made during the campaign. Democracy gives free rein to petty selfishness. Most people will, at an unconscious level, vote to the person who they think will do the most for them personally. And the problem is that voting based on someone's own personal interest will often conflict with what is best for the society as a whole, especially in long term. But the politicians, they have no other choice other than just fulfilling the selfish wants of the highest possible number of individuals who are likely to vote. These are some inevitable problems which will arise and must arise when you are going to practice democracy. The word democracy first came into being in about 450 BC. So in last 2,450 years, it has not yet been able to be implemented.
Democracy lays emphasis on quantity as opposed to quality. Every person, whether equal, is treated equal, whether stupid or genius, while inequality is a common biological phenomenon. Again, this system gives birth to two classes, majority and minority, where minority is always bound to accept the majority, doesn't matter whether they are logical or not. For this very reason, famous political scientist Marvin Sinking once said, democracy is two wolves and the lamb voting on what to eat for dinner. Now, let's move to the point number 4, diseducation. Every voter thinks himself equal to every other voter and fit to govern. As a result, these masses are less interested in the advancement of science, art, culture, literature, etc. So democracy, by definition, encourages the voter to get uneducated, but it demands eligible representative along with eligible citizens. So my question is that how an uneducated person can be an eligible voter? Is that possible? No, it's impossible. So
you'll be surprised to know that 5% of the total population of USA owns 60% of the national wealth, making it the most unequal and imbalanced society in the whole world. If this is the condition of democracy in the ideal democratic country, then what will be the condition in the less democratic country?
Because there is actually no other solution for today's world, Honorable Speaker. There cannot be any other kind of government in today's world other than democracy.
Stance is, democracy is the embodiment of people's will, desire, effort, and opinions. Denying democracy is like denying the desires and wills of the people. But nothing is truer than the negotiations and agreements of the people, right? So these wills and opinions of the people ought to exist. This democracy ought to exist.
Honorable Speaker, why? Because a society ceases to exist without the says of the people, without the wishes of the people, Honorable Speaker. So, Honorable Speaker, these agreements and negotiations do exist, and thus democracy exists. Honorable Speaker, they are calling democracy a myth because they are saying by the definition of Aristotle or by the definition of Abraham Lincoln, democracy or pure democracy doesn't exist. Honorable Speaker, only because something has some faults, you cannot call it a myth. Honorable Speaker, by their own definition, they said myth is something that people believe in but that does not exist. But Honorable Speaker, we can see with our own eyes that democracy exists. Again, Honorable Speaker, they talked about quality versus quantity. You were talking about, in a democratic form of government, government is elected on the basis of quantity only, not on the basis of the quality. So how could you say that in a constitutional monarchy or in the rules of some kings or queens, how could you say that by inheritance, the power they're getting by inheritance, a prince who's sitting on the throne after his father is actually eligible and is actually qualified when he has nothing but except the qualification of his blood, Honorable Speaker. There is no other guarantee that he can be the eligible leader of the country. Honorable Speaker, they had talked about by the people, for the people, and of the people. A democratic government has to be by the people, for the people, and of the people. But it actually is not. Then which other form of government is actually by the people, for the people, and of the people? Honorable Speaker, which other form of government could bring a high extent of development in any country in the world, Honorable Speaker? Honorable Speaker, we don't see any country that could reach success, that could reach development without democratic form of government. Honorable Speaker, they talked about concrete democracy, they talked about pure democracy, Honorable Speaker, but that is actually not something that can exist. And last of all, Honorable Speaker, inefficiency versus efficiency. They talked about democratic form of government is inefficient and it cannot be trusted, it cannot be said that yes, it can work for the people, it understands the people's good, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, a democratic form of government is elected by the people and they can be dethroned by the people at any time if they take any steps that are against the people. So they are afraid of that and they are bound to follow their promises, follow their manifesto that they had given before the election, and they have to work for the people.